Mike, check this out. Look, it's like the bike company tried to make a Trek session out of toothpicks and bubble gum, and then they ran over it with the dump truck and tried to improve it by making it a Klein mantra.
I don't know, Vernon. Look at this one down here. That one's way worse. That's like the slow kid went to shop class and went crazy with the welder and the bandsaw. He just made the longest, slackest bike that he could. Painted it blue and it's an enduro bike all of a sudden. What are these people thinking? It's ridiculous.
You know what? If someone gave us a wad of cash, we could go to Asia and make a better bike than this.
Hell yeah, we could.
Could we? I mean, at some point, everybody thought they could make a better bike than what's on the market. I mean, you don't have to know how to weld anymore. You don't need a factory. You don't even need a degree in engineering. But is it as simple as just showing up in Asia with a wad of cash and a dream? Let's find out. Let's go to Taiwan and let's try to start our own bike brand. According to the National Bicycle Dealers Association, 17.8 million bikes were imported into the United States in 2014, and 99% of them came from China and Taiwan. For the past 30 years, the annual Taipei Cycle Show has been a meeting place for the Taiwan-based factories who make bikes and the global brands who are looking to have their napkin sketches made real. Did I mention that the Taipei show is huge? Nearly 1,500 exhibitors spread through 3,330 booths. Huge. How do you find the right factory?
Maybe you've heard of it. This mythical book that supposedly contains every bike and widget built in China and Taiwan. Well, we got a hold of that book, and we're going to use this to start our own brand.
This bike industry holy grail is full of factories. Some build their own house brand bikes while also building frames for other big name brands. Other factories exclusively build bikes based on your specifications. And then there are factories that design their own bikes, which they offer up to any swinging dick with a bundle of cash. You can save some bucks and buy one of these open mold frames right off the shelf, then slap on your own logo and marketing bullshit. Is the least expensive way to start a bike brand. This part of the bike business has always been shrouded in mystery. I mean, it's not like you can just walk up and ask how much that frame cost.
So what would that cost?
250.
250?
50 US dollar.
Okay, and what would the cost be for carbon frames painted without a shock?
658.
658 bucks, 330 US dollars, minimum order of 100. That's for a raw frame.
Yeah, raw frame.
This one roughly 350 for low frame.
So can I start out like
Maybe you can buy 20, 30, whatever. I can supply.
I mean, I'd want my own graphics on it, obviously, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I want my own paint jobs.
That would be about 270, something like that.
270 without the shock, I imagine.
Without the shock, but with the assembly part, linkage, everything, yeah.
Holy crap, that just happened. Let's stop for a second and break down the cost. On average, an aluminum frame will run you $400. Basic paint job, 30 bucks. Then toss on a mid-level air-sprung shock. At OE pricing, that's $180. Now add liability insurance in case someone decides to sue you. That's about $100 per frame. Shipping's another $100. Cost per aluminum full suspension frame with shock and paint. Let's play it safe and call it $800. But there's a twist here. Most factories require that you order at least 100 aluminum frames. Anything less isn't even worth the hassle to them. So, total startup cost for a shipment of 100 aluminum bikes, about 80,000 bucks. How about a carbon version? You're looking at an additional $300 per frame. Fortunately, you can order way fewer at a time, so about $33,000. But what if we didn't want to go with the cheapest option? Taichung-based factory GENIO makes high-end, totally custom frames for some of the biggest brands in the industry. These aren't open mold, off-the-shelf generic frames. These are the real deal. But of course, you pay a premium for that privilege. Here's Steve Lin, GENIO's sales section manager, to explain where that money goes.
So how long does it actually take you guys here to build a full suspension frame?
It takes us around 45 days from cutting the tubes to finish a raw suspension frame.
45 days?
Yeah, 45 days. That's a long time.
Why does it take so long?
As you see, we have lots of steps to make sure we produce a precise suspension frame with a really high-end quality.
How many other brands do you guys build for?
I don't have the exact number, but I guess it's something around 15 to 20.
One person who feels it actually pays to pay a bit more for his frames is Chris Kokalis of Pivot Cycles. We asked him why. So you could have chosen a whole lot of factories to build your bikes at. Why did you choose this one?
In bicycle manufacturing in general, there's just a huge variance in the quality. I mean, you have factories that are literally putting millions of bikes out a year. They're putting $28 aluminum frames out. A factory like this, it's a completely different philosophy. The entire factory is designed around smaller production and building high-end quality product.
Does it actually make the bike better, safer, perform better on the trail? Is it necessary?
If the tolerance of the pivots are tighter, if the bike's straighter, if everything's going the way we designed it to, then long term you have a bike that doesn't have creaky bottom brackets in 6 months, wallowy pivots that have to be replaced every year. We get as close to perfection as we can.
That's all well and good for Pivot, but we're trying to save as much money as possible, and that means ordering open mold. Honestly, it seems within reach. I just need to hand over a load of cash, find a beach and some Mai Tais, and wait a couple months for the bikes to show up, right? We decided to talk to some people who've taken the leap themselves. First stop, Steve Felton, the CEO of PRO-LITE. Felton has been plying the trade in Taiwan for nearly 30 years now.
Can I come to Taiwan with a wad of cash and just start a bike brand? It seems easy.
I recommend you actually go and buy lottery tickets with your cash, because you have more chance of making money on the lottery tickets than you have of starting your own bike company.
And I just want to get frames built.
And in order to do that, you've got to sit down and forecast and plan everything to the finest of the details. And it doesn't work that way for a lot of people, because they think they can just come in, throw the money on the table and walk away with a load of bikes. It does not work like that. A lot of the product managers that come from the North, especially from North America, they're here 4 or 5 times a year because they need to spend time making sure they know what's going on. And Taiwanese, you know, better the devil you know than the one you don't. So if you just turn up, you're the devil they don't know, they're like, yeah, that's a nice suitcase of cash you've got there, Vernon, but you know what? We need to know a little bit more detail about where this is all going.
Okay, that wasn't exactly reassuring, which is why we're hoping that Joel Smith would tell us something, frankly, different. As the former owner of Tomac mountain bikes, he's intimately familiar with what it takes to get quality bikes made in Taiwan.
You know, I realized on one of the earliest trips that I took over here is we weren't going to get the quality that we wanted unless we were over here like every day, you know, I mean, and it would be like even from week to week, you know, come over for a week and kind of get everything on track and then leave for a week and maybe come back the next week and, you know, shit had gone pear-shaped. You realize when you're making a frame there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and if you assume they're not going to go wrong, you made a poor assumption.
One of the best things you can do if you're going to start a bike brand is find an inside man who knows the business like the back of his hand. Ryan Carroll is what you might call a fixer.
This side of manufacturing and the group that sells the bike, it's 2 separate things. So their idea of what they need and this group's idea of how it's made, just trying to communicate back and forth by email or phone or video conferencing doesn't work. So more guys have come here. We get to take part in being a part of the factory. We're in the factories. We're working on stuff. And it just builds more trust and understanding.
Like Ryan Carroll, Glenn GROESBECK is a fixer who lives full-time in Taiwan, doing quality control on bikes. In this case, for Pivot Cycles.
So, I mean, you guys have obviously chosen a factory that you think is damn good. But you're still here. I mean, do you need to be here to be doing the QC? I mean, is that micromanaging at some level?
We do still have to be here, yeah. We do the final assembly ourselves, and we have our own checklist that we do for Pivot to make sure that everything is how we'd like it to be.
So if I decided to start a bike brand and come here, would I have to do what you do?
Some brands do, some brands don't. Yeah.
And does that, so some brands do it, some don't, does that impact the actual quality of the bike that consumers get?
Very much so, yes.
You're telling me I can't just hand over a check to the factory, go back to Laguna Beach, drink Mai Tais, and get perfect bikes that people are gonna love?
No, you can't.
That sucks. This sounds hard.
It is hard.
Assume it's all gonna go wrong at every step and just be there in person.
Get into the way of life. You learn the culture, you learn a little bit of the language, you know, you learn to appreciate the history of the place. You've got to, all these things, you've got to factor that in. It's not a case of coming here with your suitcase of cash and saying, make me some bikes. It's not simple.
All the factories here kind of consider me a bit on the critical end of the spectrum.
You're a pain in the ass.
I'm a pain in the ass.
Okay.
When you have somebody else making your frame, the reality is they're not going to do it exactly how you want to do it. And you have to keep on kind of like pushing it down this funnel over and over and over and over until you get what you want.
Of all the Western guys that have come here, they've set up their own factories, they've all been and gone, but I'm still here.
What's the biggest mistake they make?
You've got 2 of these, and 2 of these, and 1 of them. And if you use them in that order, you'll be okay. But thinking that you're better than they are, destined to fail.
We came to Taiwan thinking that a sack of cash was all it took to build a bike brand, but it takes a hell of a lot more than that. Things like lines of credit and import duties and business licenses and, you know, actually marketing, selling, and distributing the damn frames. When you look at it that way, it's enough to drive you to drink.
But this whole bike thing, like, can people just like start a bike company? It kind of feels that way. How does that work?
Yeah, you can just start a bike company by going to Asia, but it's harder than you might think. I mean, how do you feel about living in Taiwan or China for 4 to 6 months of every year? And how do you feel about babysitting batches of frames from one quality control nightmare to the next? And can you become an expert in international negotiations, shipping, warehousing, inventory, sales, and marketing? Because you're gonna have to do all that and a hell of a lot more. In short, building bikes in Asia is easy, but building a bike brand without losing all your money, that's a motherfucker.